When I first started in the Telegraph City office, there weren't really any rules about buying or selling shares. You were told you shouldn't. But what they said at the time, well, we were told it was a kind of private eye test. Now you're both laughing because you both work in the City office now, so I'm not going to go into what the rules are now. But the idea being, if you saw it in private eye, would it be a bad thing?
Yeah.
And that actually...
It's a rule to live by that.
I run my life by the private eye test. If that's embarrassing, let's not do it.
That's Christopher Hope. He's the Telegraph's longest-serving reporter and our guest this week on Moral Money.
It's the show where we work out the right and wrong ways to spend your cash by helping two Telegraph readers with their moral money problems.
From gaming the state school system to favouring one child over another, we're here to help you work out if the way you're spending your cash would meet the private eye test.
And this week, we're talking expenses. So who better to join us than Chris, the man who was part of the team that broke what was possibly the paper's biggest ever story, the MPs Expenses Scandal in 2009.
Chris is a stalwart of the Telegraph's political team and is now Chief Political Correspondent. He's been at the paper since 2003, but he's also a podcaster, and you can catch him on Chopper's Brexit podcast.
And if you find yourself as angry about money morals as you are about Brexit, do get in touch. All the details are in the show notes to this episode.
Chris Hope, welcome to Moral Money.
How are you all? Nice to see you all. I feel moral today.
Very good, and moneyed.
And moneyed, not moneyed.
You need both. So.
Well, one of your biggest stories at the Telegraph was about money. Of course, the expenses scandal.
Yes.
You had a key role in that story.
Yes, I was one of the 6 or 7 reporters who were given this disc, and we had to go through it all and find out what the scams were. I say scams in quotes for legal reasons, but for what they were up to, essentially. And they were moving their allowance from one property to the next. I better remind readers what was going on. Basically, if you're an MP, you have 2 homes, a main home and a second home to allow you to be an MP. Normally that second home is in London because you live outside London, but it can be. But you can move your allowance, and wherever your second home is, because you only need to have it because you're an MP, it's paid for by the taxpayer, or at least the costs are covered for it. So if you designated a property your second home, you could then drain your allowance and kit it out with all the best mod cons off a list called the John Lewis list, which is a list of things you can get according to John Lewis, which is, of course, never knowingly undersold.
Sounds like something you'd have at your wedding.
Yes. In fact, many people do have that. And my wedding list was at John Lewis back in the day. So what they were doing was moving their allowance from one property to the next one, then back again, and just spending money on properties.
And of course, it was all public. Public money.
The scandal happened because people were not being paid or having their wages depressed by the government because they didn't want MPs to be seen to getting paid rises. And then quietly they were told on the side.
Yeah. Well, there's this little
claim for that on your expenses, and we'll turn a blind eye. And then when FOI, Freedom of Information, came in, journalists and campaigners asked to see sample receipts, and when that was allowed to be given, that applied to all MPs going back over a 5-year period, 4 or 5 year period. All MPs, 650 times. You imagine the volume of receipts. So before releasing, the Parliament decided to redact personal information out. But what they were up to was they were redacting actual, quite questionable expenses claims.
Sure.
Someone who was doing the redacting, or someone near the redacting process, I didn't know who it was, so I don't know, found out what was going on, and then leaked this disc of all information to lots of papers, and then we stepped up and got the story and delivered it. But that's what happened. I mean, that was all down to literally receipts of expenses.
But wasn't quite key to the scandal this idea that you've said that salary was low, and it was kind of commonly agreed that the way to bump up your pay was to kind of play with this system?
Yes, the whips turned a blind eye to it and said, put that through, that'll be fine. So you could have £400 a month for food, and some MPs were claiming it in August. And of course, in August, they're not in their second home, are they? They're in their constituency home, so why are you claiming a food allowance in August? So some of it was hiding, these scams were hiding in plain sight.
But it shows the power of sort of community, doesn't it? Because if everybody's doing it, even though if on an isolated basis you might think, how can this be allowed? But if it's sort of commonly accepted, everyone just goes along with it and doesn't think twice.
Well, I mean, the question of expenses leads us on very nicely to our first Moral Money Dilemma today, which is all about fiddling your work expenses.
Right.
So I'll read this out. It's from a reader sent into the website. So they write, last week, a colleague and I took a customer out for a few drinks using a corporate card to help build up our relationship with them. But after just one drink, they said they had to leave. We had a reasonable budget, so continued to buy drinks in rounds of 3 for another 2 hours on the company card to make it look as though the client was still with us. Our expenses have been approved, but I feel guilty. What should I do?
Wow, that's an extraordinary. Poor TS in Richmond.
Well, what's your immediate reaction to that?
I think it's okay to claim for the first round. I think the problem you've got is that when the number of people drinking falls to 2 from 3, it's slightly wide open, because you've got to build into a bigger lie. Well, actually, my colleague Fred went home and Steve, who's the client, stayed on, and it becomes a bit of an elaborate lie. I can see how that can happen, but not good. It's not good.
They're buying drinks in rounds of 3. There's a bit of deception there as well. They recognise that it's...
Oh, I see. So they kept going at 3, and they poured into their glasses the half the drinks, as it were.
We presume. Who knows what they had?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it looks like they've gone out and the client who they've taken out has left. So they could either have stayed on drinking, just the two of them who both work for the company and therefore probably can't expense their drinks. But they've been so naughty as to buy 3 drinks, so it will look on the expenses claim.
I think that's bad, I've got to say, because there's a deliberate awareness of the rule. There's lots of forethought. This might look bad. Let's keep buying for 3, tip it in. Let's not tell anybody. I think that's really poor. I mean, what we don't know about is seniority. So if one was a senior person and a junior person, you can buy drinks for 2 and have a work-related conversation, a bonding chat. I mean, it does happen that managers take out colleagues for drinks to chew over some issues from the office. So it could have morphed into that, couldn't it?
Sure.
And that would be okay, I think. And the moral money. Okay. Would you agree, both of you? You're smiling, but you'd agree with that, wouldn't you?
We always smile. Yeah, money
desk. But the moral money.
I think so. I think
that
I
would
agree.
pass the moral money test, because it would turn into something else.
Well, if it was a work event in which you're imparting advice or guidance,
an evening out. When you're not talking about home stuff, you're talking about how to deal with that individual who's really annoying me, and how to do my expenses. No.
Sorry, is that allowed? Can I go out and bitch about my colleagues?
I don't know what the policy is here. I think managers can take staff out for a drink if they want to. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that's allowed at the Telegraph. I've no idea. I think is that allowed?
Well, are
you allowed to do it?
I'm hoping Lauren's going to invite me out for a drink and dinner now.
Drinks on the Telegraph for all of us, straight after this.
Right now. Let's buy for 4, shall we? And then buy the 4th one.
But let's assume they're both on a level. They're both I don't know, account managers, and they're taking out a client. The client's gone home.
I would feel very uncomfortable about this. I think it just feels wrong, because also there's a degree of plotting about it. Now, if you just kept going and you had rounds of 2 and 2 and 2, but I think to order 3 and then half a third, that's
well,
bad.
They clearly know they're doing something wrong. That's the giveaway, isn't it? If they just continue, if they stayed for a couple more rounds, the client's gone. It's 2 people who work there. Maybe they're junior staff. Yeah. If they'd bought a couple more rounds, you wouldn't really mind it, would you? Think, you know what, they were already there. Maybe they'd scheduled a whole evening of their life to deal with this client. They'd gone to quite an expensive place where they wouldn't usually go, and the client's run off early.
I think
it's okay. Have another couple
So
of drinks.
the first round, there's 3. The second round of 2 will be a wrap-up drink.
Yeah.
Or let's have a drink while we discuss, because of course you wouldn't want to have a
debrief
outside where it's wet.
Yeah.
And risk personal safety by being out of the restaurant or bar. So you'd have to go, well, I want to stay here and really understand what that client was saying to me. So I think I will probably get a drink on expenses with someone and discuss how that was. And then maybe the third drink, you were thinking, well, there were some issues there we haven't quite got. That's uncovered some serious issues
Still
going back to the third.
Iron out.
Yeah. As long as you mention the client, repeatedly through, and perhaps made notes on napkins.
Very important.
Of course.
Marked out as 2, i.e. the second drink.
Second round.
With conclusions, third.
Yeah, sure.
Contemporaneous, so spilt with perhaps sort of pretzel marks on, or to indicate.
Oh, there's food now as well.
Well, we haven't gone there on food, have we? I mean, TS and Richmond isn't telling us about the food issue, but this could be I think drinks with clients needn't end. There needn't be a cut-off point, like a gong in University Challenge, where no more questions. It can taper away.
Of course.
The question is for how long it tapers.
Well, can I ask you? So, we've all sort of discussed whether or not what they did was right, but they have actually done this. So the reader asks, the expenses have been approved. What should I do now? What would you do if you were in that situation?
If I had done this, I would just. If I'd done this, you're saying if I'd been immoral and done this.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's deeply offensive. Well, if once you've done it, you've done it, and you just got to just go and move on because it
Stick your head in the sand or fess
I
up?
think so. Because you can't, if you raise it throws out far too many questions about your behaviour.
Yeah.
You can't really say you mistakenly put it through, because then they'll say, why are you claiming for 3 if only 2 of you are there?
Oh.
And then you have to say, well...
miscounted.
Well, perhaps... Well, the thing was... Well, you'd say, well, the thing was... Steve, let's call him Steve from this client. He disappeared, and he had to run out the door, and he didn't say where he was going, so we thought we should order another... And then we kept going, and we weren't sure if he was going to come back, so we kept ordering drinks.
Well, yeah.
And then he didn't say... And because we didn't want to kind of have an old drink on there, so we poured it into our drinks and kept going, and we weren't sure it was going to come back again, so we kept buying drinks.
But
it's quite an elaborate lie, and it's clearly a lie. And I think that if you were raised in poor old TS in Richmond, once it's happened, it's happened. I mean, if you raise it now, it might point all sorts of fingers at your behaviour, and trust might collapse in the office, and you might be sacked.
Well, I think
I wouldn't.
A lot of the readers. So this column, like most of our queries, have already gone on the Telegraph website.
Oh, yeah.
And readers have had their say on them. And most of them actually think that you should fess up.
Really?
On this one, I think, yeah.
Very honest bunch, our readers.
And you should be honest, say, look, I know it was wrong, offer to pay, offer to say, look, I will pay for the drinks if you want me to, and just hope that your manager is understanding and just says, don't do it again.
Because the TS in Richmond is clearly nervous about it, and they're clearly an honest person. But the problem is, by pointing to their dishonesty, they may get completely reappraised in the wrong way by the company. So they may find themselves marked down as someone who's dishonest, when in fact TS is a good person. I think.
And I guess also throw in the colleague. If TS comes forward and says, I've done this, I know. He's throwing his colleague under the bus as well.
Maybe what you should do is go out for get Steve back for a drink,
right?
Buy him 3 rounds and pay for it yourself.
Then
you even out the ledger in your conscience. I've now done that. I've now settled it in my mind
without throwing anyone under the bus.
Yeah.
Chris, I have to ask: did breaking such a huge national story about people fiddling with their expenses change how you felt about your own expenses?
Well, I've always been extreme. Yes, it did a bit. I really felt that the focus was on my personal conduct. You did feel that you're just holding these guys to account about their expenses. You've got to be really careful. So I'm very good at my expenses, and don't mess about.
So it did make you more fastidious.
Yeah, it did. Well, I've always been pretty like that anyway. But it made me really think it very hard about what can I justify?
Yeah.
Because we're holding them to a higher standard.
Yeah,
I know it's different at the Telegraph because it's not public money, it's company money, and you're dealing with company policies. It's different when it's taxpayers' money. Of course, what drove those stories on, as it always does, was it was taxpayers, our money.
Of course, yeah.
You know, there's 4 of us in the studio here. It was our money, our taxes are funding a lifestyle which we think is not fair or unjustifiable. Yes, the answer to your question.
So the drinks after this should go on my expense account?
Yes.
We're going to take a quick break now, but we'll be back after this with Chris Hope and another moral money conundrum on bribing your kids.
Hello there, Telegraph podcast listener. My name is Tom Gibbs and I'm the host of our Audio Football Club podcast. If your desire for top football chat isn't sated, then may I please recommend the Telegraph's very own podcast about that subject. Audio Football Club comes out every single Monday and it features some of the best and brightest football minds in the country, taking in all the biggest stories from the Premier League and around Europe. Search for Audio Football Club wherever you get your podcasts or follow the link in the description of this episode. Good things will happen to you if you do so.
Welcome back to Moral Money, and we're here with Chris Hope. Chris, you've got 3 kids, don't you?
I do indeed, yes.
So I'm interested to hear what you have to say about this problem.
Right.
Should we incentivise our lazy child with a cash per grade reward at GCSE? This is from GP, a reader, and I will read it out to you now. Our youngest child is about to start his final year of GCSEs. We're very worried about how well he will do. He is naturally clever, but he's lazy about studying and more interested in playing football than doing his coursework. You're nodding, nodding sagely. His teachers say he needs more motivation to work, And many of our friends are offering their children cash to get them to study harder outside of school hours. My husband wants to do the same, but I'm not so sure. Our eldest is a very hard worker. She's just received her A-level results, earning a place to study medicine at Oxford with straight A stars. We didn't have to incentivise her with anything, and she's furious at the idea we'd now give her younger brother money to do what she did anyway. What should we do?
Well, I think this is a classic boy. Although it doesn't say the sex here, does it? It says our youngest child. Oh, it says the same thing.
It's a son, yeah.
I think boys are harder to motivate than girls. I don't know why it is. I'm probably getting in trouble for saying that. I've got 2 daughters and a son, and it was harder to get our son to get motivated for his exams. I mean, I think it's really up to them to do it. I think it's in them. They have to find it in them to work hard. I don't think cash per grade. We reward them with love and positivity.
How's that working out?
Money. No, I'm very proud of my son. I mean, I blame phones. I mean, the problem is they sit there they get lost into their phone when they should be working hard, and it's motivating them.
To be fair, I think I was quite a lazy student.
Yes.
And definitely preferred playing football.
I think boys.
This was before
boys mature
phones.
later than girls. Typically, I think there's some science on that.
If that is true,
let's hope so.
well, let's assume that is true. People only do their GCSEs at 16, so it's no good to them to mature later. So, given that we're saying that some kids don't mature at that age, it's too late. Should you just sort of say, you've really got to do this now, and I'm going to help you any way I can? Otherwise, you're screwed.
I don't think it's right. I think morally they should just be trying to motivate them. We'll take you out for dinner afterwards. We'll give you a big celebration, but it's up to you. But cash per grade, I don't think is a good idea.
I don't think I didn't get cash for GCSEs and things like that. But I do remember when I was much younger, when I was about, I don't know how old I'd have been, 7 or 8, I used to have to sit down every week at the weekend and recite all my times tables. And if I got them all right perfectly in a certain time or something, I got money. I think I got about a £5, which at the time was like thousands.
Yeah.
At my age. But, that did actually help focus me on my maths. And, I did end up doing very well in maths.
Are you damaged from this, though?
Am I damaged?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Do you feel okay about it?
I feel...
It didn't make you hate times tables?
It did at the time.
Or £5 notes. Every time you see a £5 note now, you come out in hives.
We've got to work on the money.
Or start going twos.
Well, yeah, funny thing is, it did make me hate doing it at the time. But I think I'd have hated doing it, the money or not. And the money was a reason to do it. And it did make me good with numbers. And I'm on the personal finance desk now.
I mean, on pocket money,
the
pocket money that we give out to our children isn't linked to performance. And perhaps it should be. We should do some kind of performance-related chores. I mean, I suppose there's help. We do reward for extra chores in the house.
Right.
But there's a basic level of just being a child.
Just wanted to raise the point that, you come to work every day and I'm sure that you get a lot of satisfaction out of your job, but would you really work all those hours, all that grief you get, if you didn't get paid at the end of the day?
No, the answer's no to that
The answer's
question.
no. Neither.
Yeah.
I love my job.
While sat here with my boss, I'm still going to say
yeah, you care for what you say, Sam. But yet we expect kids to work really hard, to go beyond the scope, to, not just get A to C grades, but get A stars, to work for hours in their evenings and weekends after doing 8-hour days at school.
Try and fix their eyes on the prize. So you say to them, these GCSEs, I remember describing them as steps on the ladder. So you do so well, then that makes the next step easier, and then the one after that to university or college if you want to do that. So that's the thinking behind the exam. But I try to explain it to them.
Do you try and inspire your kids with, what do you want to do?
Yes.
You want to be an
They
astronaut.
have no idea at 16. Or some of them have no idea at 16.
Yes, of course.
That's a problem.
But you could try and say, you want to be an astronaut. Well, that means you're going to need to do well in physics.
Yeah.
So,
do your sciences.
Spend your hours doing your physics homework and one day you'll go to the moon. Is that the kind of incentive?
There's a lot of that, I think.
And there's another element here, isn't there? Because, of course, they mention their older daughter, I think it's their older daughter who's studying medicine at Oxford, always been straight A stars. Well, they didn't have to incentivise
grossly
her.
Unfair, isn't it?
So what's she going to think?
Well, I think they've got to... if they want to help their child, they should do, but they've got to level the playing field for the elder one. So somehow just slip her some money or slip an equivalent of what you got. But yes, I mean, no wonder she's cross, and you would be cross. I did it without need any money, and then it's not fair at all.
Yes, absolutely. Maybe they need to give her some kind of reward
I don't know, do all children need to be treated exactly equally? I mean, if one of your child was really musically talented, they might do piano, violin and harp lessons, and the other kid doesn't do anything. But should they have that money that you spent on the other kid? I mean, I don't have children, and you do, so I'm interested to know what you think about.
Well, it's hard. Yeah, you try and give them the same opportunities. Our youngest does dance, and that's costly, getting her to and from the lessons, and we pay for them. I think as a parent, you try and say, you do what you like and we'll try and help fund it. And if you're doing a more costly pastime, then I don't think we sort of see it as a kind of zero-sum game. So we have to start spending. But I mean, yeah, you try not to use it to be so, you just want to be fair to them all, give them all the opportunity they want. And of course, the day is limited by numbers of hours in the day. So
yeah, well, I mean, I'm an only child, so my parents thankfully didn't have this issue. But my grandma is fastidious about. I've got two cousins, and she is fastidious about if she once bought a piano, an electric piano for my cousin, and I don't know how much it was, say £100.
And she equalised it.
And she was like, well, I'm going to have to give my other cousin £100 and Sam £100.
That is definitely grandparents, because it's more transactional as a grandparent.
Yeah.
Sure.
Because
that would struggle in my family. I'm the eldest of 4 and I've got 24 first cousins.
Oh my goodness me.
So that would be expensive.
Lots of pianos.
But I never got incentivized with cash, but I remember when I did my GCSEs, and I'm the oldest, and I'm pretty geeky and I was pretty hardworking as it is, but my parents sort of incentivized me with a trip to New York. I've got family in New York, and they said, we'll take you afterwards. And we had this whole sort of gamification of it, and I sort of achieved air miles.
Yes.
Look, if I hadn't have got enough air miles, they wouldn't have dropped me out over the Atlantic. But it was the idea that if I did really well, I'd get to go on holiday with my parents, and it would be a little treat for us to have together.
Okay.
Yes.
So there's ways to, I think, incentivize.
You can build treats in, can't
Exactly.
you? After we certainly pay for holidays for both our children after, and certainly festivals and that kind of thing. And yes, I suppose, but we just didn't link it to actual grade. I mean, cash per grade is quite a
transactional.
It's also very detailed, isn't it? I mean, I think it's more of a general. You work really hard, and we'll give you something afterwards.
So you think maybe a more general, good approach here could be something a bit more general. If you work hard and you do well, and we're not going to say exactly what well is.
Exactly. That's what most parents do.
If you do well, then.
But that's quite important, isn't it, as well? Because especially if you're comparing how you treat children, one person's success might be straight A stars, and one person's success might be straight Bs.
Exactly.
You might work
Yes,
really hard,
absolutely.
and that's what you're going to get.
You're totally right.
So you can't really discriminate against them.
Yes, and some children are B or C grade children, but that's fine as well.
Exactly.
Yes.
And they go on to become Simon Cowell or do something amazing. I mean, I think he did.
Yeah.
I think he did not so well at school. I think.
Yeah.
You always hear that, and college dropouts are sort
but
of the richest
amazing
people in the world, aren't
Yeah, success is
Every
monetized in different
results,
ways.
every results day, Twitter is awash with
Yes.
celebrities lining up to
God,
say,
the
"Oh, look
boring
how many
journalists
views I
saying,
got."
"Look what I've done," and then we're invited to look at them, not the children.
Yeah,
Or whatever.
Yes.
That's social media for you.
Yeah.
As ever, this question has been published online on the Telegraph website, and we put a poll in. So this is what our readers thought. Should you incentivise children to study with cash rewards? 8% said yes. As adults, we expect to be paid for our efforts too. 31% said why not, whatever helps them to get to that potential. But the majority, 61%, said no, the grade should be incentive enough. So you are in good company.
Oh, good. I'm in tune with Telegraph readers. That's where I want to be.
That's what you get after working here since 2003. Finally,
Yeah.
you're all on the same page.
Yes.
Well, the Telegraph's chief political correspondent, Christopher Hope, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. It's been great to be here. Thank you.
Well done, listeners. You've made it to the end of the show.
Thank you very much. If you agree with Chris, disagree, or maybe you even have a moral money problem of your own, do email us at moralmoney@telegraph.co.uk or leave us a voicemail on 07867 162 170. You can also find that number in the show notes to this episode.
We'd love to solve your moral money conundrum with one of our brilliant columnists, so do get in touch.
As you know, we like to give the listeners the final word. Here's what you had to say about last week's show, where we advised a reader who was beginning to feel guilty about keeping a rainy day fund secret from her husband.
Hi, Moral Money. My name's Alice. I don't think there's anything wrong with keeping your own pot of money separate from your joint account with your partner. Actually, I think it's probably fairly sensible, particularly in today's financial climate. But I have to say, I do think it's sort of morally quite difficult to keep it a secret from your partner in any scenario, but particularly if your family or your family financial situation is getting difficult. And I think even if it's going to be a really awkward conversation, it's a conversation that she should have, and it's probably one that she should have now, because that kind of conversation gets more awkward the longer you leave it.
Hi, I'm Lauren's grandmother. I absolutely love the podcast, but I don't understand why the issue was not raised as to how she would have felt had she found out that he was hoarding a secret stash of money. I'm very much into positive discrimination, but I don't see a call for it here. Thank you.
Does your grandma always leave you opinionated voicemails, Lauren?
I mean, to be honest, they usually come in email form. But I would never dare disagree with anything she says anyway. Now that she said it, that is the correct opinion.
I'll let Lucy know that she is wrong.
Well, you could also let her know that if she wants to read Chris's top quality political coverage or any of the Telegraph's agenda-setting journalism for free, to head to telegraph.co.uk/audio, where you can get a 30-day trial subscription.
And subscribe to this feed to make sure you never miss an episode. And we'll be back next week with the Telegraph's associate editor, Camilla Tominey, who will be discussing two very different issues: inheritance and one-night stands.